Hello, everyone. It has been quite some time since I did one of these. I'm here today with Jcers. Jcers is, to me, most well known for a lot of very good parkour clips and videos. Added understanding of Assassin's Creed 3 and the Kenway system. We did not quite have before his work.
I'd like to credit Intivaria and Masonic for sure, but especially in terms of parkour. I think my main contribution was with that, as far as AC3 is concerned.
Yeah, and both of them, of course, did some amazing groundwork in that system.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm Jcers. I started posting Assassin's Creed videos, for about 4.5 years ago now, and maybe like end of 2019, I think is when I started posting stuff. I guess I could tell the rise and fall of Jcers as an AC fan. So
I feel it.
my grandparents got me Origins for Christmas in 2017. So that was the first time I played an Assassin's Creed game. Played that for a good year, loved that. Played Odyssey, loved that. I have so many hours in Odyssey. I no longer can stand playing the game, but boy, when I was, when the only Assassin's Creed games I played were Origins and Odyssey, I really liked both of them. And then I found a Treviso video.
Ah, yes.
And I just watched, it was his Stealth Reaper of Confession.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I watched that, and it was funny because I watched a Chris Smoove Assassin's Creed Unity playthrough back when it first came out, and I thought like, oh, this game's pretty cool. And I'd seen some like Matt Pat videos on different Assassin's Creed stuff, which now when I go back and watch them, like
There's very much a difference between like, videos made by Assassin's Creed players and then videos made by people who happen to have played a little bit of Assassin's Creed.
yeah. Yes, absolutely. And he did like research too. He read the wiki, he read a lot of stuff. Like it was clear he actually did research the stuff. I watched this Treviso video, and I'm just looking at it like I remember because I came to Origins from Uncharted 4. So I
Right.
played Uncharted 4, and I'm like, wow, this is great. This parkour is so fluid. And again, Uncharted 4, I mean, I think is almost unmatched in terms of game feel. I don't know if I played a game that feels better than Uncharted 4. But I came to Origins and I'm like, wow, this feels kind of stiff and weird. There's more you can do with it for sure than in Uncharted, path selection and stuff like that. But I was put off by it a bit at first, and then I watched that Treviso video, and it's like, so this is what I've wanted. Like when I've come to an Assassin's Creed game, this is what I've been wanting from it. And if this is what Assassin's Creed is, what it's supposed to look like what have I been playing?
See, I find that
And
really, really interesting because
yeah.
that is almost verbatim like Animus Drifter's story. When he came on the show, yeah, like I started with the RPG creeds and they were really fun when I played them. And then I went back and I was like, this is like what I was actually wanting. That's such a cool idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So played Unity, and then excuse me, I was very interested in Unity, and then I found your videos, so I went and watched your Unity guide that you're not so happy with anymore.
Ah,
But
yes.
so I bought Unity and I played the crap out of that. That was really fun. I still, as much as I love to dunk on Unity, I still think it's a fun game,
Same.
and a lot can be done with, especially if you're not trying to do anything, too fancy with it. If you're literally just playing the game to enjoy it, I think it's a solid Assassin's Creed gameplay experience.
Yeah.
Gameplay experience.
Yeah, like Unity is one of those
Narratively,
games where if you're not trying to be like ultra precise and you're kind of just playing it to play it and you're like willing to accept a little bit of sloppiness and just like roll with the, randomness basically,
hmm
it can be like such an immersive experience.
Oh yeah,
And I think that's why
and
people love it so
that's
much.
yeah, and that's we were talking about this in the server too. It's this idea that like video games were not designed to be choreoed.
Hmm.
They were designed to be played. I'll get into this in a second once we get into some of the more substantial topics, but
Yeah.
it's this thing where a lot of us skillers and choreographers get into this mindset of, well, every time I play a game, it's about doing it in choreo. You get into the choreo brainrot, as we call it, and
Yeah, that's why
it's
I play other genres.
yeah. If you can get past that and be like, it's okay that my gameplay does not have visual perfection and that it doesn't maintain exactness of, looking like an action movie. it's about a general atmosphere and an overall experience of being able to do the thing and not necessarily about how the thing looks 100% down to the exact frame by frame perfection, right?
Yeah.
And once you get to that, it's like, if you can overlook, like you said, if you can overlook a little bit of the sloppiness that Unity has, I think it's genuinely still a very fun game. The combat, not so much. But
Yeah.
the movement and the stealth, oh yeah, I love those. Like, they're very fun to me. Frustrating because, I always try to push them for more than they can handle. But,
Yeah.
even then, like, play Unity, I practice a lot. I made a resolution when I played the game to never fast travel so I could get better at the movement.
Awesome.
And that was, I still, to this day, I've never fast traveled in AC Unity, not even one time.
That's really cool.
Like, here's the thing, it's all one map. So you can get anywhere from anywhere, except if you want to go to Versailles or whatever. But, aside from that, you can get anywhere from anywhere. And it's just more enjoyable to travel. Like, the movement it's fun enough that, like, if AC2 allowed you to not have to load into different maps to go to different maps, I would never.
I would probably not fast travel in that game ever.
I would never fast travel in any Assassin's Creed game with good movement. It just makes sense to have fast travel from an animus perspective. But if I didn't have to fast travel and like load into different maps in the older ACs, I would never do it.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason to. I love moving way more than I love, just waiting for a map to load. So I'm literally just adding more fun things to this game by going places manually instead of, fast traveling.
I've brought this up on this show before, but that is why collectibles were more fun in the older games. Because the pathing to them was actually interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why collectibles now are so tedious, because there's no gameplay there.
Yeah, exactly. That is very, very true. I saw your movement guide for Classic AC, and I watched it. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to go play AC2. So I bought the Ezio collection. I remember loading it up. I'm like, yeah, this does feel kind of stiff. It was very interesting because I started AC2 knowing how to use ejects and catch ledge. That allowed me to gain proficiency with the movement system very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And as a result, thoroughly enjoyed the movement from day one. And then once I got used to, I wouldn't call it stiffer, I'd simply call it snappier movement of the classic games. It's just, this is the best. It's never been better than this. And then eventually I got into making videos, and you noticed me, and that was actually very, very encouraging. That I literally just left a comment on one of your videos one time. I don't know if you remember, but I was like, hey, do you think you could come check out my videos? Just give me some feedback, see how I'm doing. And then you actually watched all 3 of the videos I'd posted.
What's really funny is I still do that. Like,
that's awesome.
Whenever people are like, hey, like, I don't always, like, have the time, but, like, I still try to.
Yeah.
Because you never know.
That's really commendable. Yeah.
That's actually really funny. I didn't know that you were one of the people that kind of, like, discovered me and that I discovered in that way. Like, I completely forgot. Because of me, I was just like, oh, I feel like I've always known Jcers.
Well, there's a reason for that. It's that, you were kind of one of my, like, within my first 25 subs. I don't remember exactly which one you were, but you were one of my, like, within the first 20 or so subscribers. So, yeah, well, my first ones were Unity stealth videos, actually. But, and then what really took me off was the AC1 parkour down montage I made. Because you'd
that was crazy.
Like, yeah, you were like, I want to make this and blow everyone's minds with vaults and what roof dents and everything like that. And you just never made it. And I'm like, I think I'll make this. Why not? So I made it. And then, you promoted me.
Thank you for doing that.
Oh, no problem.
Because that was so cool. It was basically like what I had in my head. So.
Yeah, it was a fun video to make, and it's very interesting. We'll get into this later when we talk about the evolution of choreo and skilling, but like very interesting to look at that compared to what parkour choreo has become now.
It's insanely different.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that was kind of how my YouTube channel took off, and yeah, I really took a liking to. I still make stealth videos, and I like making stealth videos, but yeah, where I really found my stride was in parkour choreo and my parkour snippets. Yeah, that was where it started. Before that, like, people made stealth videos for Assassin's Creed years and years and years and years old.
Yeah.
But no one really did choreographed parkour. There was like Banana Grandmaster's AC Unity video.
Yeah. And then on Twitter, Memento Gallery would do like Unity stuff.
Sebastian would post stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But not so much for the old games. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he'd post like the occasional clip here and there, but it's on like YouTube is
Yeah.
it was yeah basically unheard of that people would post like just especially classic games is no one posted just AC1 AC2 parkour videos,
Yeah.
and so that is certainly not the case anymore.
I
That is
know, I love it. It makes me so happy. I love
yeah
how like we went from this being such an unmined ground. You can type in, old AC game name parkour and you can get some like very nice looking
yeah genuinely good
quality
content
like
that'll come up.
inspiring videos where people can see that and be like,
Sure.
wow, that actually looks really cool. I want to do that. The next thing we do have is Assassin's Creed 3, which is a very
Yes,
special game to you. And I think
it is.
it is, when people say like, oh, like X or Y game is underrated, I think
Mhm.
Assassin's Creed 3 genuinely is underrated, like in the very
Yes.
like literal way.
Hmm. Absolutely. I would agree. Calling something underrated is such a meme, like kind of what you're
It
talking about.
really
It's
is.
like,
It's
oh,
it's a
everything is
clickbait
under.
term.
I was just one day I hopped into the server and I said, I'll read out what I said. I said, I think Choreo has ruined my ability to play games normally. I'll be playing a game by myself and I'll be frustrated by the fact that I don't get enough animation variety in my actions. Stuff that would never even touch the mind of a normal player of games. I said, the thing is, I don't know how to break it. And I was like, and I can go into how bad this Choreo Brainrot was for me. It's that so everyone knows the meme that Jcers is supposedly releasing an AC3 stealth guide at some point, which is still going to happen, but I have other stuff I want to work on first because that is a bit mind-numbing to work through. But
Same.
there's a particular aspect of the games when you do low-profile takedowns. Hidden Blade, of course, you have your quick stab, and then the body has about 2 or 3 seconds before it hits the ground, and then any guard that just like cherry bombs in Unity, if you the term I use is possible line of sight, where
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is possible that they could see it should they turn to look at it. The unarmed animation, note very noticeably, Connor will slowly and quietly set the body down on the ground as part of the animation. So part of me when I was testing for that, I was like, so does that negate the guards turning around? Can I like instead of just hidden blading someone, if I would want them to not turn around, could I just unarm them so that the guards don't hear anything?
Hmm.
And the answer, if you leave the body there, if you just like don't touch it, it's no. They give you they give the game still gives you the 3 seconds to get away, but then they'll just turn around like as if they just fell and hit the ground as with a hidden blade. And when I was testing for that years ago, I was just like, oh, okay, I guess that's not a valid mechanical use of unarmed takedowns. It didn't even occur to me to try picking up the body and throwing it out of line of sight of the guard to see if they still reacted because I was so in the choreo mindset that I do like why would I pick up a body? It's too slow.
Right.
So I was so choreo brain rotted that I didn't even think about, okay, what if I use that 3 seconds where the body's not hitting the ground, or like when the body's
It's
on the
not
ground,
like
to pick it
pinging the
up and move
guard,
it?
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the answer is, yeah, if you pick up the body and move it out of possible line of sight,
They don't turn around.
they don't turn around.
Yeah.
But my brain was in such strong choreo mode that I didn't even consider that as the idea of doing it didn't even enter my mind because I just in choreo you just almost never move bodies because it's too slow, it
Yeah.
takes too long, it breaks the flow of what you're trying to do. So that's not even true. Slower choreos are great too, but it was just not how I played
Yeah,
the
it's
games.
not
It's not
something we
my
would do.
style.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just that's how much choreo is in my brain.
It really puts it
And
into perspective, and I think it's an interesting factor of how whenever someone new joins a community and they're like super crazy passionate about games or whatever, they can
mhm,
figure stuff out really really quickly that
yeah,
some existing members may not have been thinking about. And I think like Twig
yeah.
is a great example of that. The way you're engaging with these games is not according to community traditions, basically.
You're not trying to imitate anybody necessarily. Like you'll still have influences to some degree, just like from playing games in general. But yeah, the way you approach Assassin's Creed specifically and the way you think about it is going to be very different. I was just so upset with like just I want to play a video game. Hopped in AC3 and I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna sit down and play Assassin's Creed 3 from the beginning to the end. Not 100%ing anything, but like a thorough, patient playthrough of the game. I'll read you the restrictions I put on myself. No fast traveling. In-world fast travel points like the port master, the harbor masters or whatever, like those were allowed, but I only ever used it once because the game is like, go talk to the harbor master and go back to the homestead. I'm like, okay, well, am I really just gonna not do that when the story like explicitly has me,
Right.
you know, am I really not gonna? It's like, okay, fine, I'll use it. No checkpoint resetting unless something game breaking happens.
Yeah.
I think for the average player who doesn't have Choreo Brainrot, if you want to, like, if you get detected and you want to reset a checkpoint, feel free. In some games, I think part of the intended game experience is getting detected and hiding again and then getting back into stealth and using your, okay, just adapting to the situation.
Yeah.
But so often in AC3, that is just not doable at all.
Yeah, the mission design kind of breaks sometimes.
Yeah, so it just assumes that it seems like in a lot of ways AC3 assumes that if you get detected, it's because you wanted to get detected, which is not true.
Not true in that game, certainly. Like, not necessarily.
It's not true of most players of stealth adjacent or stealth games, so.
I don't think casuals would really have like too much of an issue with that because they're not usually the kind of players who would immediately reach for the checkpoint button.
Part of that, I think, is an assumption that if I hide and, you know, and they lose track of me, it'll probably be okay and I'll be able to still stealth my way through stuff. The reason we would immediately reach for the checkpoint button
is because we know that's not necessarily true.
It's not happening, bro.
Like, they're gonna be on that, like, level 3, like, looking for you for the foreseeable future. Like,
detected in a fort every time, you know, they can't have predictable routes anymore. You run through a specific spot instead of walking through it, so they'll just instantly detect you and then 10 more people spawn in, like. You just know, it's like, things are worse now. Feel free to reset checkpoints, but I forbade myself from doing that. Delete the Choreo Brainrot. Okay, so number 3, no horse whistle, except for when it makes sense, when you not having a horse makes no sense. Number 4, no minimap. Waypoint marking is allowed, but discouraged. Number 5, playing each moment with deliberate role-playing intent.
Yes.
Jogging instead of sprinting everywhere. Number 6, doing all Homestead missions as soon as they're available. Fully developing Homestead with trading convoys and putting serious effort into crafting things and buying them, and not buying them, even consumables.
I think that's really interesting because the crafting, the Homestead, and the fast travel underground tunnels, those are like the 3 parts of the game that I feel like the highest number of players straight up just do not engage with. I think the Naval at least has some of that, like, it has that draw.
But the problem with it is you need to upgrade the Aquila if you want to actually, like, get into it, and then you need money. So then you need to do the trading. So, yeah, it's like the rest of point 6 was spend time with homesteaders, literally just, like, watching them live their lives.
Just looking at their animations,
Go into the tavern and, like, listen to them talk to each other. There were so many. Like, one time I walked in, and Oliver and Warren were sitting there, and Oliver is sitting behind the counter. He's like, all right, so what you got to do to get Prudence to really like you is you gotta catch a squirrel and make a hat for her out of the squirrel skin. And the Prudence is like, why would she want a hat made out of a squirrel? And Oliver's like, you gotta believe me, man. Number 7, do as many optional conversations as you can find. And by the way, if you ever play AC3 again, please make sure you go back to Connor's village and talk to the clan mother in Kanantokon, like, as often as you can. Because there's some plot developments that, like, kind of feel like they come out of nowhere if you don't hear those. So number 8, do all naval missions and peg leg missions. Number 9, actually use the underground for traveling instead of fast travel. Even narratively, it makes sense that you would do that. The nice thing is, if you travel underground, because you're leaving the city, it can actually help you clear your notoriety.
Yeah.
So that's actually helpful. So it's very immersive to like, if you end up getting to a high level of notoriety to move underground, it's like, well, yeah, of course you would do that. Why would you not? Number 10, play board games with people and hunt often. And number 11, always move in low profile when going through deep snow on foot. I mean, you and I both live in Canada, right? So a lot of people don't really, but like,
you cannot run through that shit.
When you see them running in the snow, it's like, it is.
You would be out of breath in like 5 seconds.
Yeah, literally, that would be like, I am stunned at these guys' stamina because running in snow,
it just destroys you.
Especially when you see the amount of path they clear.
It's crazy.
It is like, they're like, no, they're not even just like, you know, hopping through the snow. They are trudging, like they're plowing through that. Snow is heavy, especially when you have that much of it. Like, it would take serious effort to get through that. Yeah. Really made it feel like winter. when I had to do that.
Yeah.
I got a whole people when they watch my series, because I'm gonna post it eventually. I'll get into that in a minute. But there's a part in sequence 9 where there after memory 1, Hatham goes to New York and tells Connor, well, that's the one where Hatham's getting like beat up and then Connor comes to save him and Hatham ditch him. It's like, all right, I'll see you in New York, and Connor's just like, bruh. And then the game, one thing that I think the game struggles with is giving you good narrative cues for when it feels appropriate to go and do side content.
Yeah. Definitely.
But that's definitely a moment because you show up in New York, and even the scene before then, it makes a big, like, Connor's like, winter is approaching and everyone's getting prepared, and it starts and it's winter in the frontier, which is great because there are not many moments in the story when you get to be Connor in the frontier in the winter. There's literally like one, maybe two. And that's one of them. And if you just go straight to New York, it shows up 1 month later and it's summer again. And it's like, and I that's why I literally paused in my playthrough. I'm like, I want to make sure that I get a chance to go to Frontier in winter again. So I looked up Sequence 9, and I'm so glad I did, because I was like, okay, if this feels like a time I could probably get away with doing side content. So I look it up and I see that text on the screen. 1 month later, I'm like, yes, okay, this is a time. And I got like a really good long extended segment of Frontier winter gameplay. And there was this time where I got stuck without a horse on my way back to the homestead, and I was just like trudging through snow for like it was like super snowy, a wind blowing in the OG AC3, so there's like actual fog, and you can't really, like, visibility is genuinely affected mechanically too for the AI. That a lot of people don't know that. Shadows, I am doubtful that will happen in Shadows. That's all I'm gonna say. AC3 probably did, calling it now, AC3 did winter better than Shadows. But anyway, it was just like I had these really awesome immersive moments, and very much that. So definitely the 11th one, like, it feels a little bit arbitrary, but like
you need to play Death Stranding.
It change. Oh yes, it's very Death Stranding, but it changes the way. Like, it actually makes Frontier in the winter feel very different from Frontier in the summer.
Yeah,
it creates a real gameplay difference that's not there in the base game. That I think. Like, I understand why they let you run. I think they should have done something similar with sprinting in snow, that, like, with horse stamina. I think that would have
made sense. Yeah, Assassin's Creed is very allergic to, like, inconveniencing the player, and it makes the games very lifeless.
Yeah, this is true. That peaked in Syndicate. That was definitely.
It did. That feels like
Syndicate's design philosophy.
Yeah.
Don't irritate.
God forbid you piss off the player by any means.
Yep. Unfortunately for them, they're in their attempt to do that. It creates. I don't know if there are more Assassin's Creed games that I find more infuriating in just casual play than Syndicate. Syndicate infuriates me and drains me of energy. Any of the Quebec games, really, I find. Like, Odyssey does that to me too. But especially Syndicate. I find Odyssey less that way than Syndicate because of how different it is from like, because Syndicate, I just feel like I'm playing Unity, but it's trying not to offend me.
Yeah.
Whereas Odyssey, it's like, it feels very much like it's so detached from Assassin's Creed mechanically and experientially speaking. It's like the phenomenology of it is just completely different. Whereas Syndicate, it feels like I'm playing Unity that's really, really, like,
just pared down, and like
it went through a TV writing sensor.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I do this AC3 playthrough, and I now have a full terabyte of AC3 footage on my PC. Like 60 hours is what I got. And like, it's given me such a new appreciation for the game, and it's really shown me, like, I think I want to upload this series, and then in addition I want to make a video. I think I mentioned this to you before. Not necessarily like in defense of Assassin's Creed 3, but more
just sharing
like
what's cool about it, like
how to enjoy AC3.
Yeah.
I think because ultimately I can't call AC3 good in the same way I would call, say, AC1 good or Assassin's Creed Brotherhood good.
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest issues with the game is that AC3 is a slow burn.
Yeah.
And it needs to be. It needs to be enjoyed very, very slowly, patiently, and methodically. But it lets you not do that.
Yeah, and it lets you kind of
It,
like ruin your own enjoyment of
yeah,
it, like unknowingly.
yeah, exactly. That is like my number one criticism of the game in terms of narrative because it completely allows you to ruin a lot of the things, and that was something I really noticed with this playthrough.
Yeah,
Was so many of the common criticisms of AC3 just disappear
yeah.
if you play it slowly and really try to do all the side content.
Yeah, like the main one
And
people know about that is like very popular to bring up is like, you should play the homestead missions and like
yeah,
engage with the homestead. That's like the big one. But,
hmm,
people almost never bring up that like there are other parts of the game that are the same. That like,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, like you mentioned the crafting aspect. It's like the reason the homestead is in the game is because
is to
like the
let you do
crafting
that.
system is literally it is integrally tied. This is something that I point to, and this is I've had a lot of conversation with people on the server. Is like AC3 is a very integral system, and this is kind of my thesis statement. Is that I think if we talk about like which of the games in the Assassin's Creed franchise are the best at giving you the assassin fantasy? My answers, I have two. I have two. The AC1 and AC3. Assassin's Creed 1 is the best game at giving you the assassin fantasy according to the assassin.
And then
Right? It
AC3 is that like according to
is
society.
it, I would actually say according to the man,
Ooh.
according to the person who is an assassin.
Right, yeah, that's kind of what I meant.
Because yeah, because AC3, right? AC1, it is. I mean, I mean, you talk to Fair. You should talk to Fahrenheit about this. You guys, he's working on some like massive AC1 analysis. It's
He's
gonna be
he's shown
crazy.
me bits and pieces, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's like you. There's the bound of scouting, pre-planning, the investigation, like that. Genuinely, like, he made points. It's like there's no other stealth game that really does
No,
this. Like
no,
genuinely,
none.
there is not any of the greatest stealth games. Greatest Splinter Cell is, greatest Hitman is. None of them let you do this. This is genuinely unprecedented in the gaming world, at
Never
least
been done
AAA. I'm
before
sure.
or since.
Yeah, I'm sure there's maybe been like a few indie games that have tried something similar, but like in AAA, nothing, right? And it really lets you sink into the job of the assassin.
That's why I love it.
Yeah, and that is valuable and fantastic. Now, according to the man, in the Assassin's Creed franchise, has there ever been a game that really just made you live the life of your character more than AC3?
No, I
Or
don't
if
think
not even
so.
necessarily made you, like really enables that?
No,
No.
I don't think
There's
so.
nothing
I
like
can't
it
think of one.
because it's such a, I mean, number one, such a unique character. Like
Yeah.
such a like the whole concept of AC3, picking the protagonist that they did for an American Revolution
It's
game,
so cool, man.
brilliant.
Like genuinely
Brilliant.
what game like does that? Like
Yeah,
I
it
can't
was.
really think of any. I mean like Infamous Second Son exists with like Delsin and whatnot, but like I
Hmm,
don't think he belongs to like an actual tribe. I believe it's
makes sense.
totally fictionalized.
Yeah, yeah, and it was like when you look into it too, like the tribe, the Kanikehaka, it was like there's maybe like 100 people in the world that speak that language, and there's like 20 of them in this game.
That's I know.
Like
Just
the amount of
Ubisoft was different
specificity.
back then, bro.
Yeah,
Like
and the dialogue in that language, and it makes sense that the animus wouldn't translate it because the language packages are built into the software. But they didn't know that they were going to be going to the American Revolution. They just show up at the temple, right?
yes,
And they get
exactly.
talked to. So they didn't. And because it's so well known, like such a little known language, they couldn't get like access to it, so it doesn't ever translate,
Yeah,
right? So it's
exactly.
like it makes narrative sense why they're doing what like why like the inclusion of the First Nations culture there. It makes complete sense
Yeah.
why it is the way it is. So and then in addition to that, it provides such a unique perspective on like the conflict the game is trying to in present day and in terms of assassins and templars, present day and past, and of course in the civil like the civil powers too, separate from the the assassin templar conflict, just the like the political climate as a whole. It was genuinely, I think, the perfect choice to choose a protagonist like Radonageton to be the protagonist for AC3.
Yeah, truly
It
in
was
so many
brilliant.
ways, you're playing characters that like are between two worlds in a very like
Yep.
in across like multiple axes, basically.
Yep.
Like Desmond does
And
well,
that's
right? Like, and
yeah.
yeah, it's so much. It's so cool. Like,
But yeah, and even then, like you compare that to any of the other games. Like none of the other games really have just baseline that interesting of a protagonist knowing nothing else about them. Like I I don't like really, is there anything?
yeah,
Like just that
can't really think of
embroiled
one.
in everything at once?
Yeah, he's so
Like maybe Basim, but that's just context from Valhalla.
right.
Like
Yeah, if
Basim's
you had never
interesting
played
because of
Valhalla, you
Valhalla.
wouldn't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's from the prior
And
lore.
that's why
Like
people who hadn't really played Valhalla, like they play Mirage and they're just kind of like, they're not really getting that
yeah.
impact.
Absolutely, yeah. So there's everything that you do is it's all about like what would it's really about just living his life. Like a good example of this, right? Compare conceptually AC3 to Black Flag.
Yeah,
Why is hunting in Assassin's Creed 3?
because he would hunt. Like he had to do
Because
that.
Connor would hunt. It's his life. It's he grew up doing it. Connor is an American. He's ultimately a revolutionary. He's helping to fight for the colonies being liberated from British rule. And we can get into the pluses and minuses of that as the game does. Very, very, I think, very nuanced and very interesting. What AC3 is about, like the fantasy it's shooting for, is specifically this man.
Yeah.
Right? It's this guy.
It's funny that you brought up,
It's not
like
the American Revolution. It's well, yes, that's in there, but it's this guy in the American Revolution.
yeah.
It's such a unique, like highly specific fantasy they're crafting, and they do it so perfectly because of the amount of detail they put into everything. Because yeah, there's a hunting. It's not just the fact that like Connor's brought up, with the history and his tribe and everything like that. But it's also this game is an American frontier fantasy simulator, right?
Yeah.
Like being on the America, because that's what the Homestead is. It's in a way, it's like crafting the assassin, like what Connor understands as the assassin ideal of freedom. It's a land of possibility, working in harmony with not overtaking anything, just creating a community where everyone's able to work together. No one's really,
Yeah, no
they
one
all
is
just
being
it's
coerced. Yeah.
exactly. And in addition to, but it's forging something new on the American frontier. So in a way, it's like this is actually creating the idea of quote unquote the American dream, right? So that's the fantasy the game is going for, right?
Yeah.
But from the perspective of someone who already lived there and didn't come there,
Yeah,
but
what would that
working
look
with
like
people
from
that
his
did come there.
lens?
Hunting in that aspect, it's like, okay, I have nothing. We have no resources. I'm chilling at Achilles' mansion or manor. I have nothing, but I can hunt. So,
So he
maybe I
does what
can
he's
buy this
able to
stuff.
do. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's really when you start off, that is going to be your main way you get money. It's from hunting. And,
Yep.
remains to be a good way to get money throughout the game because selling pelts is just so lucrative. Given the story they're trying to tell, the character they're trying to portray, what else would he be doing?
Yeah.
Right? It's like this is just who this is and what he needs to do to accomplish the goals he wants to. Like it's so central to like the overall fantasy the game is trying to portray. Why is hunting in Black Flag?
Hunting is in Black Flag because hunting was in AC3 and it uses the same framework.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
It's kind of like it's kind of like
reason.
how when Origins launched and it had like Senu, right? Like that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense because Bayek is very like linked to this eagle, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then like Odyssey and Valhalla came out and it's like okay, like you have eagles because Bayek had an eagle.
Yep.
Like
Especially in Valhalla. Especially Valhalla. Odyssey I can actually kind of forgive because they tied it into the story pretty well.
yeah.
Pretty well. It's like competently, I would say, with Pythagoras and what have you. But yeah, Valhalla Sunan is there because Origins and Odyssey had birds.
Yeah.
And then not only that, they made the bird actively less useful because they gave you Odin sight.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is the bird here? Like, there's no reason for the bird to be here. And they did the same thing with hunting in 4 too, because in 3 you have the whole damaged pelt system. You have bait. You have what was it? Snares, right? So there's like actual things you have to do. There's
God, killing people
um
with snares is so raw.
oh yeah, like the snare counters is crazy. But yeah, it's like there's all these other things to it. And of course, hunting just by jumping from trees and, stabbing bears is totally effective. But there's all this other stuff you can do with it, right? Because they wanted to actually make it a system that felt like there was something to it and something that you can do for hours and hours. AC3 hunting is so addictive. This playthrough, I have probably like good 6 to 8 hours of footage of just me hunting different animals.
You could
Like
get pretty
that's
good at it, and it even had its own little like side quest chain where
yeah,
like
the hunting society. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like, and Black Flag, it's you just shoot with pistols because that's your ranged weapon that kills things. Whereas AC3, it's like if you shoot them, you'll kill them, but you damage the pelt, making if you need the other stuff from them, like if you're going to because once you get the crafting, there's different things that you need from animals to craft certain items, but you can't buy them from Miriam.
Yeah.
So maybe you need the bears for something else. So you could like just if you have a really good gun, you could just shoot them twice, and that'll you'll get the other stuff. But the pelt, the thing that's most valuable just like to sell by itself, is now worthless because it's damaged. So
It's really interesting that really we wouldn't get another game that properly even attempted this kind of thing until Red Dead Redemption 2.
well, the funny thing with that is where did the AC3 devs go? AC3.
Yeah, I mean,
A lot of them went to go work at Rockstar.
yeah.
And that really shows.
There's a lot of little details in that
weather.
game. Yeah.
Yep. And the approach to immersive, I don't want to call it immersive sim, but like being a
Like making you be Arthur Morgan. Like
yeah, exactly, right? It's the philosophy is exactly the same, except Red Dead, I would say, accomplishes this in a more competent way, in the sense of
definitely, I mean,
it forces you to do it, which is good because it's what the game is trying to do. That's the intended experience.
Yeah.
Whereas AC3 doesn't force you to do it enough.
Yeah.
That's kind of the issue. So there's that, and then getting to the crafting system and the economy. That system is so interesting because there's number one, it's the idea of forging a new society on the American frontier, and then in addition to but it's that allows you to build into the money. So you have your artisans at the beginning of the game. You're kind of just building up your resource gatherers, and then in sequence 9 you get all your other artisans. And Lance is stuck at level 1 until later in the game because he doesn't have tools.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's until about sequence 9, you're kind of just like selling booze and food and pelts. That's kind of what you're really going to be selling. But then and it just I think separating the homestead from the mechanical aspect of never using the crafting system, it makes the homestead feel unimportant in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Whereas like when you really do the crafting stuff, it's like you get Ellen.
You're grateful anytime you get a new character because it's like that's more stuff I can do now.
I can make money. Yeah, and then especially Ellen, because you get her and it's like, oh, I can carry 2 guns now. I can carry more smoke bombs. You get her to craft enough. I can carry 40 bullets instead of 8. I can carry whatever, like all this stuff, right? And it's these things that like actually change moment to moment gameplay, or the saddlebags that you can reload your ammo from a horse instead of having to buy it.
Yeah.
Right? It's that these are things that change the actual moment to moment gameplay. Or, I have more ways to make money. So there's an actual mechanical feedback reward for doing these story missions. Whereas, if you don't get into the crafting, you're just doing it for the sake of the story. And I do think it's engaging enough on its own right. But, the main story has mechanical, you gain things over time. I mean, the story progresses. There's a gameplay feedback for that. Whereas with the homestead, separated from the crafting system and the trading economy, I think it really it doesn't hit the same. So you really have to do the crafting too to like for the system in its integrity to have the effect of placing you in that, like, again, because what is the homestead? It's you're building this thing. It's like, okay,
it's Connor's version of Masyaf in like a very real way.
And also I think the transfer to a more active system from compared to the Ezio games where it's like, you have the villa or, you have buying businesses in Rome or Constantinople.
You just come
It's
home, dump your money, and then go stab
Yeah,
more
exactly.
people. You don't really
Whereas
care.
Yeah, because Ezio is just kind of inherent in a lot of. I mean,
It
Brotherhood,
fits
you
his
have to build
character.
stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, Ezio is already in charge of things in front of a Brotherhood in Italy that's ballin', right?
Yeah.
But Connor shows up
He has to
to
build
to
everything from scratch.
Achilles is literally an old dude who sits and cries himself to sleep every day.
Yeah.
Like there is nothing left of the assassins in the colonies. Nothing.
Yeah.
Connor has to build it from scratch. So how would it make sense to have an economy? And again, forging something on the frontier, right? That's the other fantasy. It's like I am building the American dream. In
Yeah.
like again, like in a not cringe, like Wall Street capitalist kind of thing, but like no, just like actually just
The
like
essence
I'm
of the
trying to
thing.
create yeah, I'm trying to create like having a great society founded on mutual respect for each other.
Yeah.
That's like you have to do the forging. It doesn't magically happen.
Exactly.
So
You're
having
using
more
your harmony
active
with the land to like
yes, and
build
with the
something.
people.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the more active economy is again it's integral to the overall experience. And then that ties into other stuff of and but then of course you need the harmony with the people, right? That other aspect. So they have all the homestead missions, so you're not just like, oh, go buy a black, because they could have theoretically had this stuff, but it's just like, oh, get upgrade to get a, it's like a Monteregione, you buy upgrade to get a blacksmith shop, right? They could have done that and had
Yeah.
the system's mechanics be the same, but it doesn't feel integral and like you're actually like there's a very big difference between, I see Lance hanging from a cliff, so I kill all the people that are, harassing him, and now he agrees to come work for me.
Yeah. And
Versus,
also he
I
becomes
buy
one
a
of your
shop.
recruits.
Yeah.
Like
Lance? No, Lance is a homesteader.
oh yeah, just a
That's
homesteader.
yeah.
Because there is some
Well, that we'll
overlap.
get in. We'll get into the recruits too, but yes.
Yeah.
Same philosophy underpinning the system for sure of like actually making these personal.
Yeah.
But like yeah, and then they have stories, they have personalities, really great. Like you just see them walking around, and then they mocap them doing all these scenes. I finally this playthrough I finally saw the scene of Oliver butchering a full pig from he's like
Dude, I haven't even seen that.
okay, we can. I'll make sure to. We could watch it after. I'd have to. I don't remember which one it's in because again I have a terabyte of footage, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure where it is in there.
But that's
But
really cool. Like there's so much
yeah,
work
it's
in this game that it just kind of went unexperienced.
yep. And because it just lets you not do it,
Yeah.
right? But again, that is the experience it's trying to give you. It's the whole fantasy, the intended like end of what you get out of Assassin's Creed 3 is this entire life experience of living as Connor during this point in his life.
Yeah.
So if you don't do these things, you literally just get sucked into the American Revolution, which is again what I was saying earlier about kind of going back to a much earlier point where about like the common criticisms of AC3. It's like, well, it feels like Connor is just Forrest Gumping around the American Revolution. If you only play and then they give me Charles Lee thing. If you only play the main missions, that is, I completely understand why you're going to get that impression.
Yeah.
I completely understand it because it's exactly how it feels, right? That we'll go into the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing. Yep, American Revolution, obligatory. Hear this, obligatory Boston Tea Party, obligatory Paul Revere's ride, right?
Yeah.
But like when there's a 12 hours between or whatever, like maybe not quite that long, but
hours, certainly
there's
hours.
an hours and hours long gap between you doing the Boston Tea Party and then the Battle of Bunker Hill.
Yeah.
There's a huge, maybe that's not the best example, but like when there's that much, let's see, because Battle Bunker Hill is sequence 7. Let me quickly look. I'll be able to kind of discern things just from like where I have my episode titles. Sequence 6, yeah. So for sequence 6, I start off sequence 6 just to put in perspective like how patiently I played this. It took me, let's see, 12 hours, 33 minutes, and 38 seconds to play through sequence 3 or sequence 6, excuse me, not sequence 3. And then sequence 7, I had because that's yeah. So there's a fair bit of that, and the Battle of Bunker Hill is near the end of sequence 7. and it's like 5 hours, and then Paul Revere's ride is, I think, sequence 9, right? So then, yeah, but that would make sense, right? So you battle Bunker Hill sequence 7, and then sequence 9 is like I have hours and hours and hours before I do the Paul Revere ride, and it's like, oh, this actually just like it feels way more natural. It's just like, yeah, because in the narrative, there's literal years
Yeah.
between those
The
points.
game is giving you an opportunity to like spend those years with Animus fast forward, of course, like
Yeah.
immersed in the daily life that Connor
Yep.
would be having.
And
And
it's
if you don't do
essential to
that,
the pacing.
yeah.
It'll ruin things if you don't. And yeah, it's like that was what really struck me about playing the game this way. It's like this is actually a brilliantly paced game. It just lets you not engage with how it wants to be paced.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then going back to the crafting mechanic, like to kind of wrap up that point, it's, you know, if you want to do the naval too, because there's an entire main Templar target that's entirely through naval missions.
Yeah.
And it's actually going to be pretty hard to beat the naval missions without upgrading the Aquila, which is the most expensive thing in the game. It's you need like over £100,000 to fully upgrade the Aquila, which you are never ever going to get if you don't engage in the crafting system. Like you're just
it's
never
really hard.
Whereas if you just go and like sell, like if you do three things, like sell 3 land convoys of bear pelts, immediately that will probably like you will probably never, if you don't deal with like the Aquila or anything else, 3 land convoys, fully upgraded land convoys, so full with the capacity upgrades of bear pelts, if those boys get through, you are never going to have to worry about not being able to buy consumables for the rest of the game. Like you're not even gonna have to touch it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's a system that like if you engage with it even a little bit, like you spend maybe half an hour over the course of a 25-hour playthrough, half an hour of that is dealing with the crafting system, you will have so much of a better time than the average player who is struggling and like literally looting bodies to go get money.
Yeah.
You know, as I've heard from like Heifer or different people in the server, like, yeah, I literally like, you know, and then I figured out I could sell bear pelts at the stores, you know, and then that was kind of a little bit better. But even then, you know, it's like even spending half an hour in a 25-hour playthrough on doing the homestead and doing the crafting missions that's going to do a lot for how much you enjoy the game, and like removing frustration of not having money or whatever. It's like, yeah, like they put a lot of effort into this. And then there's also the aspect of like land. Do I choose land versus naval convoys? Because, you know, if it's land, I have, and then there's the forts that they tie in with the tax. And if I take over the forts, then
now you have a
I
reason to do
money,
those
right?
stealths.
But then there's the risk of if I send it over land, it could theoretically get raided, so I'll have to go defend it. But then if you get your assassin recruits leveled up high enough, you can send them to go defend it for you, and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And then
every system just interlocks with so many other systems. It's so cool.
Yep. That's why I say the word I really like to use for AC3 is integral. Right? It's I've been getting a lot into like philosophy and different stuff, but there's this principle in like medieval scholastic philosophy called the principle of the integral good. And the Latin formulation of it is bonum ex causa integra, malum ex quodcunque defectu, which translates roughly to good is from an integral cause, evil is from any defect whatsoever, or from whatsoever defect. And it's basically this idea of like, if you have a system that's like, to call us like something good, right? Every part of it needs to be good. Because if it's truly composed of these things, if there's a part that's not good,
the whole system will feel it.
It'll eventually fall. Yeah, like it's an idea of like you're only as strong as the weakest chain in the link.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of the whole thing. And AC3 is definitely like that.
Yeah.
Where if you don't, and again, it's that issue of the game just allows you to break the chains.
It does.
Right? It allows you to do that, and that's my biggest criticism of the game overall. But yeah, like that's, I think and even stuff like board games, right? Like pointing to the idea of life. It's like, why are these here? Because people play board games.
Yeah.
And that's what the game is shooting for. That's why you do it. And it's like, oh. And then, yeah, so all of this, like, very long-winded explanation, but like, this is why I think AC3 is so special, because number one, it actually it feels close enough, like, it really feels like an evolution of classic AC, and not something new mechanically. like there's a lot of new stuff, but it still feels like it's intact with the classic design, mechanically, paradigmatically speaking,
Mm-hmm.
while feeling like in some ways meaningful expansions. Of course, there's the drawbacks, which I
Yeah, I
think,
mean,
yeah,
Assassin's Creed 3 is like it's just another iteration of like the thing that AC2 did, which was what does the assassin archetype look like when put into a different time and different place? Because like the
hmm,
assassin, like assassins are like a liquid in the sense that cats are
yep,
a liquid. Assassins adapt to their environment,
yeah,
and like what
exactly,
assassin means adapts to its environment.
hmm,
And so, what does assassin mean in this environment? Well, you get Connor, right? Like,
yeah, exactly, right. Like, I don't know what else they would have done with the game, genuinely.
yeah,
Like, and I guess, yeah, that's basically my whole argument, and that's why I think this game is so special. When you really take the time and just say, I'm going to experience everything this game gives me, it is such a special, immersive experience that the series just genuinely has not done before or since.
I think it's
That,
so interesting
yeah,
as well when you compare AC3 to Valhalla, which kind
yeah,
of attempts a lot of the same things to a
hmm,
much lesser success, I feel like.
yeah,
Because
yeah, like
whereas AC3
Ravensthorpe.
has the issue of there's all this cool stuff and it lets you ignore it, Valhalla's issue is rather there's all this cool stuff and you don't really have a reason to do it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it doesn't actually make the game that much better, even if you do care about it.
Especially Ravensthorpe. Like when
Yeah,
you compare Ravensthorpe
to
to
the
Davenport
Homestead.
Homestead,
Yeah,
it's like,
it's a night
I
and
mean,
day
there's
difference.
there's the meme of whatever Hytham, then go in peace. That's like the one thing he ever says to you.
Yeah,
Whereas like the example I gave earlier of Oliver and Warren just having I could have just not walked into the tavern at that moment, and I would have never heard that hilarious conversation of Oliver trying to explain to Warren why he needs to make his wife a hat out of a squirrel,
yeah,
right? Or the optional, like the scripted optional conversations you can experience, or like you'll be walking down the street and someone will bring a letter to Father Timothy or to Lyle the doctor
yeah.
because they can't read, so they need someone to go and read it out to them. And there's different stories of like Norris is like Norris gets one where Norris gets a letter saying you have iron in your mine, and he's like, yo, because I guess he sent off a sample somewhere that he was, and
Like, what
he's
is
there to
this,
sell.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, it's like, is this real iron? Is this like, yeah, so they test it. It's anyway, and he's there to celebrate with Miriam and she's super happy for him. There's another one where like it was Terry's brothers coming to visit, or and then there's another one where it was like Oliver's I think it was Oliver's mom died or something like that. So there's so much variety. Like there is nothing like that in Valhalla.
there isn't.
Nothing.
No, Ravensthorpe is almost like strictly mechanical and transactional in like so many
Yep.
ways, and that's if
Yeah,
you
like
even
White.
like need it at all. Which,
Yeah,
yep,
like the most character you get out of Ravensthorpe is like White Light said in his review of Valhalla, like you have a sex button. Like that's
yeah, basically.
really what it is. And that's all you get out of it. It's really a shame because when I listen to Sarah Schachner's Ravensthorpe theme, it gives me the feeling I get from AC3 and from the Homestead.
Yeah,
Like
Valhalla's
that
music
sound.
is insanely good.
It's I good, and that's the thing. I listen a little bit off topic, but man, when I listen to Valhalla's music, it reminds me of how much I wanted to like that game.
Same.
I gave it every shot, man, and even with like the launch version and I'm glad I got most of my playthrough of Valhalla on that because I actually, for all of its flaws, I actually had a good time playing Valhalla until patch 1.0.
Same. It
That
just
patch
broke
when they added the
everything
aware
for
mode.
me.
Yeah, but before that, it was the stealth pretty punishing and kind of frustrating at
Stealth
times.
kind of worked pretty
Absolutely.
okay before that patch.
It
Yeah.
was I think overly punishing, sure, but like
We could
did
still
I
do
was
cool
I
things with
able
it
to have a
though.
good time with? Yeah, I made 3 Valhalla videos.
Yeah.
Did I have fun? Like the videos were frustrating at times for sure, but like did I have fun playing Valhalla up until that point?
Yeah. I
Yes.
did, for sure.
And then the aware state happened and it was just over.
Yeah.
But
That patch just destroyed everything for so many people.
yep. Yep. Anyway, especially social stealth too, like literally ruined social
Oh,
stealth.
social stealth. I actually enjoyed like slowly walking around with my cloak and like pulling people
Yeah,
into like
for
little
what it
houses to
was
stab
fun.
them. Like,
For what it was fun. Or the new haystacks, like the hut haystack
yeah,
things
yeah,
that they
the
added.
vertical ones.
Yeah, yeah, like that was cool. But like then yeah, like now when someone sees a body, it's just like immediately insta detect, not even with a meter. It's just yeah, it's so bad. I can't I don't know how that got added in or whose idea it was, but like it could not have been the main devs that added that in because they would be like, "What? What? No, like that would ruin social stealth. Why would we add that?"
Yeah. You know, I
So,
still haven't played the that one DLC in Valhalla, like the Paris one. I still
oh, I
haven't
haven't
played
touched
that.
either of them.
That's
I
the
bought
only
them.
AC
I haven't
content I
played them.
haven't played.
I haven't touched either of Valhalla's DLCs. It's like I knew I wouldn't enjoy playing the game anymore, so I didn't.
I honestly still might at some point, just so I can say I did, but I definitely wouldn't be trying to sneak around. I would probably
Yeah,
do
yeah.
the, you know, the thing on the main menu where it's like, hey, we'll just give you like a, you know, like a preset like loner save so that you can just like
Yeah,
be
yeah.
progressioned up to that point. I'll just do like a
Yeah,
warrior
yeah.
playthrough on that or something.
Well, they did add the black box stuff, so maybe it'd be worth like trying to that once or twice.
Oh,
But
maybe. Yeah.
but yeah, because they did actually put effort into that, so I think like it'd be worth at least testing out, see how it is. From what I saw, the footage was like, nah, it's all right. I think Unity still did it better, and definitely Syndicate did it better. But it's good that they thought about that and like, yeah, we actually want to try and do something with stealth. It's like if you did this, if this worked with the 1.02 version of the game, this would have been really fun.
Yeah.
But the way it is now, it's just like whatever. But yeah,
There
anyway.
were so many little things. So I'm just gonna rant about
Yeah,
Valhalla for like 0.2 seconds, but like
very well.
there are little things that bothered me in like those first weeks after release where immediately like the game was just less enjoyable for me because of them. Like the first one
Yeah.
was sleep arrows. When you harvested
Yeah.
someone with your hidden blade after
Man,
a sleep arrow,
I forgot about that.
you
That's
no
so
longer
bad.
got back the full adrenaline.
That was so bad. And it's even worse because there's no actual crowd control in the game.
Yeah, like we didn't have smoke bombs or smoke arrows unless you paid money for a DLC, which didn't exist until like months later,
Yeah.
right? So that
Yeah.
was something. And
And here's the thing,
then
the game still works without crowd control. Like it's tough, but it
yeah,
works.
yeah. But it's the little things like that where it's just like, why are you making something that already feels kind of bad like feel even worse? And it just really bothered me, especially because like no, like even if you were playing optimally and correctly, early game stealth was punished harder and like resource choked harder than any other playstyle in
Yep.
Valhalla. So it's
Yep.
like when you start the game, you have two adrenaline segments.
Yep.
That adrenaline is precious in Valhalla
Yep.
early game. And like you're gonna just tax me so much for sleep arrowing a guy, like dude, get out of here.
Yeah.
And then the next thing
Yeah.
they
That was.
changed,
Do you know why? My theory about why they did that is because of
people were
the.
going into like super high level areas and just like wiping them at like level
Well,
1.
no, that not even just that. I think it was the combat use of it because it was an infinite insta kill in combat.
Oh yeah.
And my crackpot theory is that because Raptor kept calling it so overpowered, oh, this is so overpowered, guys, and just like, yeah, you can just cheese every fight that they changed it.
I really
My
wish they
that's
could have found a way to like make it so I don't know. It's
just make it if you're like if you're
make it so
already
that
like
only happens if you're detected while you did it.
yeah, at the very least, right? Like yeah,
Yeah, I'm
that
sure.
can that couldn't have been that hard to implement
Who
that version of
knows?
it,
Who
where it's like
knows? It's
if
hard
there's
to
a
say.
proper detection.
Yeah.
Sure, but if there's like it wouldn't be hard to know if you're detected. Like the game knows that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
And
But
then
yeah,
later there was the other thing as well where it's like and obviously like it makes sense that this was fixed.
mm,
Especially if it was like game breaking or whatever, or if just like average use case players were accidentally doing it too much. But
mhm.
Dive of the Valkyries could break doors from the other side.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
That was really cool as well because it's not free. You're burning adrenaline, which again, early game is very precious. And if you're using it on a door, there's probably no enemies nearby for you to like harvest it back, right?
Yeah.
Like that was really really cool. That was an interesting decision. Like do you want to like actually solve the puzzle like the manual way, or do you want to burn some adrenaline to like speed through this a little bit? And that made the
Yeah.
game world feel more interactive, where it's like
Yeah.
there's not just one way to do certain things. You can play like a little bit RPG-ish, right? Like
Yeah.
that was really
Yeah.
cool. And then the last
Like
thing that I remember
they
really
nerfed that and
changing.
ejecting onto ladders.
Yes, yes, they did. And then the last thing I remember being like a noticeable change was the play dead skill.
Yeah, yeah, they nerfed that because you could
You could
assassinate
stab
bosses.
bosses with it, yeah, and you couldn't do that later. It's not even that like it would dock your damage, you just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, just literally deleted the assassination prompt,
Yeah, and
which is
it's those little things that just like these things made the game more enjoyable for a
yeah,
certain archetype of player and a certain like role playing style. And like
yeah,
by removing and like making those impossible to do, you're basically shrinking the ways you can roleplay in that
yep,
game, which were already
yeah.
very limited.
Yeah, because like you play, like you think of an actual role-playing game, like a really good one, like a perfect example of this, Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, right?
Morrowind is insane.
If you played Morrowind, which is, I think, I've yet to play it, but from what I know about Morrowind, it is the greatest role-playing game ever made. It's, it's like, could you imagine if Morrowind just decided, like, not to let you do that to bosses? It's like, what?
It would be
Mor-
unthinkable.
Morrowind doesn't, like, you could Morrowind lets you kill main quest people that you need to actually
And
complete
you
the
can just
story of the
keep
game. You
playing
can
the
just
game.
off them.
Yeah,
You can
and
just off them and go live in the world and not do the main quest at all.
yeah, and it will tell you like,
Like,
hey, like you know, the thread of prophecy has been severed. Like you cannot continue the main story if you do this. But it doesn't even game over you. It's just like you can still
huh.
play. Just reload your old save if you want to.
Yeah, yeah. But like you don't have to. You can just play the game and just like chill in the world and
Yeah.
go do stuff, right? That's like the craziest thing. It's like from an actual these games call themselves role-playing games. But how easy is it to actually role play as the character you're playing as?
Not very easy at
In
all.
most cases, especially in Odyssey, when I'm having to farm you know, like what about the fantasy of being a
Demigod.
supernatural mystios is why am I having to go and pick up all of these trees on like these small trees in the hills to go
That
get
was
enough stuff?
definitely my biggest like, you know, you just didn't like you dropped the ball thing
Yeah,
with that game is that like when I'm level 1 to 5, by all means have me like pick up trees and stone and you know scrounge resources cuz like I just got thrown off a mountain. I've been living on
yeah,
this little island. I'm nobody. I just have this like quote unquote magic spear, right? That's about it. I'm no one. I'm a scrub, right? Like sure, like
yeah.
let me be threatened by all means, but like at a certain point I feel like the game should have like scaled up, so to speak,
How
where I
many of
was
these major political leaders am I aligned with that I'm still having to scrounge for trees in the
yeah,
wilderness so
like
that I couldn't just like buy wood from these literal cities that are building ships and stuff, and
I've
I'm
talked about this
friends with the
so many
Archon
times.
of Athens, and I still have to scrounge for wood in the wilderness? Seriously?
Yeah, like it just feels like at a certain point the game should have like leaned into what it was allegedly about, which is I should be able to press the attack button once and wipe out an army.